We're here on site at Battle Abbey in modern-day Battle, England. Just beyond the abbey lies the field where the famous Battle of Hastings took place in 1066 AD. But what was the Battle of Hastings, and why did it have such far-reaching consequences for England? In January of 1066, the English King Edward the Confessor died childless, and there were several claimants for the English throne. One was the Anglo-Saxon Earl Harold Godwin. Another was the Norwegian king Harald Hardrada. And another was the Norman William, Duke of Normandy. Harold Godwin had ties to the throne through family relations. The king of Norway, Hardrada, was relying on a promise between an earlier king of England. And William of Normandy claimed the throne through Edward the Confessor's mother. She was the sister of Richard II, the Duke of Normandy, and she had married King Ethelred. Actually, Edward had spent a lot of time in exile in Normandy, and when he came to the throne in 1042, he relied on Norman support. The English Wittencoat crowned Harold Godwin, and he prepared to defend his throne. He immediately sent his brother Tostig into exile, and he went south to wait for William's invasion. He spent most of 1066 on the southern coast waiting for the Normans to come. Harold's exiled brother Tostig teamed up with his enemy, the Norwegian king Hardrada, and they invaded northern England. So Harold had to gather all his armies and rush north to fight them off. He finally managed to defeat them at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, and Tostig and Hardrada were both killed. Harold then released and left some of his army up north while he pushed the rest of his army to get south again to wait for the coming invasion. William spent 9 months gathering his troops for his invasion of England, and he landed here at modern-day Hastings on October the 28th of 1066, just as King Harold was defeating Hardrada. William brought with him a prefabricated wooden fort and had it placed here atop this high hill overlooking the English Channel, but he quickly ordered a stone castle to be built. On his way south with his army, Harold heard about William's landing on the southern coast. So he camped at Caldbeck Hill on October the 13th, hoping to surprise William's army. However, the Norman scouts had seen him, and William rushed to meet him. So on October the 14th at 9:00 a.m., battle began. Harold had his forces on top of Senlac Hill, but Harold only had infantry, while William had infantry, archery, and cavalry. William held his cavalry in reserve, but his archers were not doing him much good, trying to shoot uphill, and he could not break through Harold's shield wall. So a retreat was called, and the English pursued. William realized that when the English pursued, their shield wall was broken. So he stopped, gathered forces, and faked a retreat again. And this is the way he managed to finally break through the wall of the English forces and outflank them. The English forces collapsed, and the battle was basically over. King Harold died late in the battle, either with an arrow through the eye or a sword thrust, or perhaps both of those. But the interesting thing is, this battlefield is 8 miles from the town of Hastings. So, Battle of Hastings is somewhat of a misnomer. However, it did stick. William made his way to London, where the English had already crowned a new king, Edward the Etheling. He had to fight several battles before the English nobles did finally surrender to him, and there was continued resistance for years. But on December the 25th of 1066, he was claimed the King of England in Westminster Abbey. The Battle of Hastings is considered to be the most important battle in English history, and because of it, there were very far-reaching consequences. One was that the Anglo-Saxon land-holding elite was almost completely replaced by Normans. In fact, many of the Anglo-Saxon nobles fled and went to Ireland, Scotland, and as far away as the Byzantine Empire. Another consequence of the Norman conquest of England was a change in architecture. We began to see Romanesque churches, as well as a new kind of castle, the Motte and Bailey Castle. The Motte was a large mound that was heaped up with a wooden tower put in the middle, and the Bailey was the walls surrounding it. This is the very first example of a motte and bailey castle in England. This was the first castle that William built here at Hastings, but he built about 550 more castles throughout England. Although the English had a very organized system of government, when the Normans arrived, they centralized it and put the power into fewer hands. They also expanded manors and the feudal system, but they completely eliminated slavery. William also commissioned the Domesday book to be compiled, which was a detailed, systematic compilation of the land and wealth in England. Another consequence was that trade was increased with the continent. The English language also underwent a big change. In fact, this time marks a transition between Old English and Middle English. With the new Norman rulers speaking Norman French, thousands of new vocabulary words entered, but also the syntax and grammar began to change. Some letters were dropped out of the English alphabet while others were added in. And with all of William's new appointees, the English completely lost control of the Catholic Church in England. King William the Conqueror commissioned this abbey to commemorate his great defeat on the battlefield. However, this abbey also commemorates the last time that there was ever a successful invasion of England. I'm Michelle, and this is Brian, and we hope you've enjoyed watching History on Site. A few years ago, we sold everything and took off to travel. We enjoy finding stories, myths, and legends about the historical sites that we visit. So if you enjoyed this video, please let us know by hitting that like button. And we would appreciate any comments or suggestions that you have. If you'd like to see more History on Site, hit the subscribe button and don't miss our upcoming videos. Thank you.